This video is brought to you by Captivating History. Thanks in part to pop culture, the Vikings have a reputation for being ruthless, marauding cutthroats who sailed the icy waters of the North Sea searching for a village to plunder. In reality, the Vikings were much more than sword-swinging invaders. They were accomplished farmers and builders, sailors, and explorers. In open longboats, they crossed the vast ocean and discovered faraway lands long before other Europeans. The age of the Vikings lasted from about 790 CE to 1066 CE. During that time, the Vikings amassed wealth, power, and territory as they organized their society, tormented the Brits, and developed their complex mythology. Perhaps one reason why the Vikings have become so popular in today's pop culture is that their history is filled with colorful characters, such as Eric Bloodaxe, Bjorn Ironside, Ragnar Lodbrok, Eric the Red, Ivar the Boneless, and Leif Erikson, who left an indelible footprint on world history. During the height of the Viking Age, the Vikings were a force to be reckoned with in European history. The Viking culture was unique because it was not tied to a country, and there was no central government that ruled over the Vikings. Although they invaded foreign lands and sought out undiscovered places, they did not attempt to build a cohesive empire like the Romans. What they had in common was that they hailed from the Scandinavian region in what is now Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, and that they spoke a common language. The daring adventures of the Vikings were recorded in sagas and chronicles assembled from oral stories centuries later. Probably there were embellishments made to these stories that have obscured the historical facts, yet gave us exciting stories of hero warriors and legendary feats of strength. The Vikings, it seemed, had a lust for adventure. They sailed from their homelands in the north to coastal areas around Europe, and in doing so they were exposed to the wealth of the European cultures ripe for the picking. In 793 CE, Viking raiders sacked a helpless seaside monastery in Lindisfarne, located on the British Isles, thereby launching the Viking Age. The ease of the raid and the riches they plundered whet the appetite of the Vikings. Soon, they divided their time between farming their land and sailing off to plunder coastal communities in Britain and beyond. The Viking sagas are filled with larger-than-life characters. Among them is Ragnar Lodbrok, a figure that has caused debate among historians. Most historians believe Ragnar Lodbrok did not truly exist, but was a composite of other real-life people. Lodbrok was the very picture of a Viking warrior, with the cool Viking name to go with it. Lodbrok was not his given last name. This was a nickname given to him that meant dirty pants, hardly a flattering description. Not only were his trousers unwashed, but Ragnar Lodbrok had little regard for the sanctity of religious artifacts and buildings. He led raids on churches and monasteries on the British Isles and in France. Legend has it he even attacked Paris in 845, navigating his longboat upriver from the coast. Ragnar Lodbrok died shortly after his return from Paris. One story says that Lodbrok succumbed to an illness he may have picked up on his travels, but that is not a very heroic end to his story. A second version of Lodbrok's death claims the Viking was captured by a Northumbrian king and tossed into a pit of vipers. In doing so, the king of Northumbria, King Ella, would have to face the wrath of Ragnar Lodbrok's son, Ivar the Boneless. No record remains to tell us how Ivar the Boneless got his Viking nickname, leading us to come up with our own possible scenarios. Despite his name, Ivar the Boneless was a brutal, cunning warrior. It was Ivar that, in 865, led a massive invasion known as the Great Heathen Army to conquer England. This time, the Vikings weren't interested in a smash-and-grab campaign. They wanted to establish a settlement on the British Isles. For a brief time, Ivar ruled over England. He attempted to broker peace by uniting some tribes of England, but he also created chaos by murdering 3 English kings. After executing King Edmund of East Anglia, Ivar the Boneless returned to his marauding ways, but he changed the tide of the Vikings from raiders to colonizers. Ivar the Boneless wasn't the only son of Ragnar Lodbrok to impact European history. Another son, Bjorn Ironside, there was another son called Sigurd Snake in the Eye, became the king of Sweden and established a dynasty that held the throne for several generations. Occasionally, however, he set aside his crown to do what the Vikings did best: raiding and plundering villages. Bjorn Ironside's claim to fame is that he attacked villages along the French and Spanish coasts and sailed through the Straits of Gibraltar in 860 to lay siege to the Mediterranean. Bjorn may have been the Viking king of Sweden, but the first true king of Norway was another Viking warrior named Harald Fairhair. During his reign, which lasted from 872 to 930, Harald Fairhair united several minor Viking kingdoms under his rule. History is split on its evaluation of Fairhair. Some accounts say he was fair and just and helped to lay the foundation of the country. Others say he was violent and forcibly sent settlers to the newly discovered Iceland. Still, Harald is considered to be the father of Norway. He was also the father of several sons, Eric Bloodaxe and Haakon the Good. Upon Harald Fairhair's death, his son, Eric Bloodaxe, assumed the throne, but not without violence and bloodshed. According to legend, the ruthless and barbaric Eric killed his own brothers who challenged his claim to the throne. Only one brother, Haakon the Good, was left unscathed and eventually wore the crown as Eric left Norway to establish a settlement in York on the British Isles. From there, he raided coastal villages in Scotland and Ireland. During Harald Fairhair's reign, the family of Egil Skilligrimsson left Norway and settled in Iceland. There, in 910, Egil Skilligrimsson was born. Although Egil was a fierce Viking warrior, he was also one of the greatest Scandinavian poets of the Viking era. He wrote a type of epic poem called skalds, which were written to boast about one's exploits and brave deeds. These poems served as an oral record of battles and other historic events for the Vikings. In 960, the Danish king Harald Bluetooth, for whom our modern wireless technology is named, welcomed a son into the world who later became known as Sweyn Forkbeard. According to sagas told about him, Sweyn seized the Danish throne from his father, but soon after he left Denmark to lead an attack on London. Known for his long beard that split in two thanks to a deep cleft in his chin, Sweyn Forkbeard failed in his campaign against London and was forced to regroup in Scotland. Sweyn first returned to Denmark to regain the throne, then launched another attack on London. This time, he encountered little resistance. On Christmas Day in 1014, he was crowned the King of England, but he died just 5 weeks later from a fatal fall from his horse. Sweyn Forkbeard has been called the Forgotten King of England. While the Vikings worshipped their own collection of pagan gods, Christianity was spreading across Europe. It was only natural that the Vikings would encounter Christians who sought to convert them. When Viking traders began to lose business to Christian traders, many Viking traders took to wearing a cross when doing business with Christian merchants, but replacing it with Thor's hammer once the deal was done. Some Vikings, most notably Olaf Tryggvason, was an ardent believer in Christianity. Olaf, fresh from a plundering mission to England in 996, returned to Norway to find that the people had turned on their ruler, Jarl Haakon. Olaf joined the rebellion, raised an army, and easily defeated Haakon and assumed the throne for himself. This move made Olaf the first Christian king of Norway, and he used his new position to convert his people to Christianity by any means possible, including torture, beatings, banishment, and murder. King Olaf wasn't content to see just Norway become a Christian nation. He tried to spread Christianity to Iceland and Greenland as well. King Olaf hit a snag in his conversion efforts in Iceland and Greenland. Without going there himself, he could not use fear, intimidation, and violence to convert the population. He had to find another way. In 997, the son of Eric the Red, Leif Erikson, visited Norway and served as a retainer to the king. Olaf took the young Viking under his wing. He convinced him to embrace Christianity and to spread it to the Viking settlements in Iceland and Greenland. The king of Norway, with the distinction of being the last great Viking ruler, was Harald Sigurdsson, who was called Harald Hardrada, a nickname meaning hard ruler. Harald Hardrada was ambitious and clever. He traveled to Jerusalem and Constantinople and parts of Europe. He gathered knowledge of the world besides riches. Back in Norway, he engaged in war with Denmark until he, like many of the great Vikings before him, set his sights on the British Isles. England's Edward the Confessor died without leaving an heir, and Harold was one of the many people who tried to claim the title. When he didn't get it, Harald fought for it. He met the new king, Harald Godwinson, on the battlefield in 1066. Harald Hardrada took an arrow through the neck, ensuring a victory for Godwinson. Godwinson had little time to revel in his win, however. Just a few weeks later, he was defeated at the Battle of Hastings by William the Conqueror. The Viking era was a time of discovery and expansion, but that progress was punctuated with war, brutality, and violence. The Vikings' reputation for barbarity was well earned, but it didn't tell the whole story. While raiding and pillaging were common activities for the Vikings, they were also expert sailors, explorers, and navigators that colonized Iceland and Greenland. Their exploits in England in particular, and Europe, forever altered Western history. Their thirst for blood and adventure added to their legends and propelled the Vikings of yesteryear into the pop culture heroes of today. To discover more about the history of the Vikings, then check out our book, The History of the Vikings, a captivating guide to the Viking Age and feared Norse seafarers such as Ragnar Lothbrok, Ivar the Boneless, Egil Skilligrimsson, and more. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free Mythology Bundle ebook for free while still available. All links are in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.